In the woods today down on Whippoorwill with my buddy Brian Maxey. And we're going to pay a visit to the grave of Jim Earls. Uncle Jim, as he was known. A little bit of history. When Laurel Lake was constructed, 1964 to 74, there were 12 cemeteries scheduled to be moved. They moved 9. One of the cemeteries that was not moved was Sears, which we were at just the other day. And another one, we call it Miser, but we've never found it yet. We're going to try to...
It was supposed to have been destroyed by a logging crew. Forestry went up there and done selective logging.
Yeah.
I guess about 30 years ago or so, back in the 90s or 80s. And they, I guess, we didn't mark the grave off with the pinch or whatever.
Yeah.
They went in there and guess destroyed the headstones.
I've got the coordinates of it. So we're going to try to trek back over there sometime. So Miser and Sears were not moved, and the Jim Earls gravesite was not moved, and that's what we're visiting today. Go ahead, I'm sorry, Brian.
One of the Ossip girls told me that right there.
Okay. What was the name?
Jennifer Ossip.
Ossip. Well,
her papa's Amber that was from down this country originally.
Yeah. The story about Jim, he was, I guess, Brian, there were several Earls that lived down in this country, but the story about Jim, I guess the best way to describe the old boy, he was a mountain man.
Yeah.
And he had a cabin down here on the river.
Yeah, his old home place sitting down below the ridge, right there where he's buried up overlooking the Whippoorwill Valley.
Yep.
They had a cabin sitting down the river.
Now here's what we can tell you about him. He died April 13th, 1942. He was a big supporter of the Galilean Children's Home, and he visited there quite often. And when he died on Monday, April 13th, 1942, it was a shock to this area down in here. Old Jim would have covered a lot of this territory on foot, Brian. What's some of the communities he would have visited down here? Grove?
He went through Grove, Young's Creek, Walker Branch, or Walker Creek. There's a bunch of them down in here that he would have...
Legal?
Yeah, Legal.
Flatwoods area?
Yeah. There's quite a few down in here. Can't think of now.
Frankfort? He would have probably gallivanted around all these little communities.
Line Creek ran back off this way right here. Whippoorwill Creek ran back off the front ridge. Right down in here. There was Little Spruce Creek. Ran back off when you go up the Spillway Road right there.
Yep.
There was a bunch down in here, dude.
Now this road that we're walking in on, Brian, more than likely was a service road forestry used, or the Corps of Engineers used when they were building this Laurel River Lake project.
A lot of this was the original road down in here. Right there, where I was pointing out all the Wilson property to you. From on up to the
Yeah, Brian has a knowledge of a lot of the old property owners back in the day and old home places that existed down in here, and some of the places we're walking. Of course, the road we're on right now obviously was an old service road, but some of the other roads are still very visible off to the sides. Wilson's, what's some of the other names that were down in here?
Wilson's, Earls, Godsey, a bunch, Speed. There's a bunch of them.
Yeah. So basically, we are headed in toward Whippoorwill Creek. And Uncle Jim, when he decided to be buried, he wanted to be buried on the hill above his cabin.
Yeah, he told him right there. He said bury him up on the ridge overlooking Whippoorwill Valley, where he could see all the beauty of God's creation.
He had no idea that 30 years later,
everything would be underwater. Yeah,
it'd be a lake. Yeah. But Uncle Jim, when he picked instead of being buried down in the valley near his cabin, he opted to be buried up on the ridge. which is now a cliff line on Whippoorwill. So therefore, when he was slated to be moved by the Corps of Engineers, they decided in the 11th hour that there was no need in moving him.
Yeah.
And he's still resting in peace.
And I'm glad that they left him up there.
Yeah.
It makes this area a lot better.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain.
So we're going to trek on until we get to Uncle Jim Earls' gravesite. Land starts dropping off as you start getting close to the lake. If you look in the distance right there, Brian, through the trees, you can see the lake.
Yep. You can see Grove Marine on the other side over through there.
But this is a beautiful, beautiful area here. Rolls off down toward there. And we're basically walking a ridge.
About at the main top of the ridge right now.
Top of the ridge. Here it goes.
Even when you go on down that way and stuff, there ain't no chance of houses. Back at Mountain Hill Tree.
Yeah.
There's not no chance of houses.
Back in the day, Brian, when Jim Earls and these people lived out in here, this was definitely not much of a forest.
No,
this was pasture land.
Yeah, a lot of it's cleared off for where those shops and
every once in a while you'll see a good sized tree.
That's how they lived out there and stuff.
Oh yeah. You know, there's a couple of pretty good sized white oaks that were young back in the days, but most of this is small timber.
Yeah.
It's grown up. I mean, Uncle Jim been gone almost 80 years.
1942, yeah. Right middle of World War II.
Yeah. Video cameras never do anything justice, Brian. No. But you can see the lake way off in the distance there. As we're starting to head downhill, bro.
It would be beautiful to
yeah. You can kind of get some shimmer off the water right there. It's pretty country, man. You live in a pretty nice neck of the woods, bro.
Yeah.
You got a good stomping ground to get out and hike in. So Uncle Jim used to pay a lot of visits to the Galilean Children's Home. He used to say he loved to climb out of that Whippoorwill Valley up to the top of what they called the Galilean Ridge, and that's still there today. Yeah. What is it, Laurel Lake Baptist Camp?
Yeah.
And but it was the Galilean Children's Home back in the 30s and 40s and 50s. Sort of, there are a couple books out there on it, sort of a controversial ending to that place. But, yeah, when Uncle Jim got out and sported around, that was one of the places he loved to visit. And we have found his grave. Wow. I want you to look. Well, you can see, we'll get a shot of that closer to the edge in a minute, but yeah. James C. Earls, March 31, 1866, April 13, 1942. None knew him but to love him. If we could go back in time to that, whatever day that burial was, you know, they had to, Jim lived down in the valley down there somewhere. But this is a spot he picked of his own choosing. Yeah. The thing you got to remember about this spot that he picked, Brian, I mean, it looks like there's trash here, folks, but there's not. That's them big old banana leaves or elephant ear leaves.
Yeah.
Jim chose this spot.
Yeah.
And the Corps of Engineers decided to leave him in peace. They didn't move him because there's absolutely no danger of any water coming up here. Is this Whippoorwill coming out right here straight ahead of us?
Yeah. Wow. Down here calls this swing rope.
That's at what you call it, island right there. I always called it Rock Island.
Snakehead Island.
Snakehead Island, or whatever people call it.
safest place you ever go to in the summer.
But you can imagine, Brian, I bet, man, and yellow jackets fly around that place. You can imagine, Brian, if you take the water out of this where the river's just basically cruising through, and then Whippoorwill Creek down here is joining in with it. This would have been a mighty peaceful place during Jim Earls' years down here.
I always talked about the beauty of it, people did, and stories I read about it. I got a book called Up Parky Ridge by Gladys Lenore right there that Zester Taylor told me about, and I ordered off eBay right there. It's called Up Parky Ridge right there, and Parky Ridge was ridge coming off of where Grove Marina sits now.
Yeah.
That was a ridge that went down through there, Parky Ridge was, and Gladys Lenore wrote that book right there about that place down there.
So is this the creek right over here, coming in this bottom?
Yeah,
Walk down there and get some shots of that. What a beautiful place, man. Absolutely beautiful place. So Uncle Jim probably lived down below these cliffs right here, Brian.
Yeah, he sat down on home place, sat down on the river, man.
Down on the river.
That's what Bobby talked about in the book too.
Trying to keep from busting my hind end.
Yeah, you better be careful, man.
Coming down this hill here.
The hill's got steep on you.
Over the years. Well, you can imagine what it was like when they hoisted Uncle Jim's casket up here, because there wasn't no water in this. There wasn't no lake here. So this is Whippoorwill coming in right here. Where's it back up to? Up through here?
Yeah. All this been here would be Whippoorwill.
Tell you what, it's just literally surrounded by steep drop-offs. So this is just a tributary into Whippoorwill.
Right there's where they brought Uncle Jim up.
I'd say you're right.
They had to bring his coffin up like the rope police station with the rock side, up the hillside up down here.
I mean, you can see, Brian, that's 20-foot drop-off right here.
Yeah.
And that ledge goes all the way around. You can imagine what it looked like back then. And Jim's grave is right up there on that, that over there on that top of the ridge. And this is all still cliffs, even though there's water everywhere. But look at the rock. Jeez. I mean, you just talk about rock. It's incredible.
And that's the way it looked too. Before they ever built the lake, it still looked.
Well, sure. Yeah. All they did is fill this son of a gun up. There wasn't a whole lot of work to do here.
No, it was like the perfect location for a dam and build a lake. It really was. The way it's like a big bow.
Yeah. Incredible.
I kind of always thought that too, brother. I used to love camping around there. I've slept many.
So from where we are, I got a feeling Whippoorwill's coming in over there on our right.
Yeah, they come. When you go up the ridge up there, up to old Clarence Wilson property.
Yeah.
Right there up top the hill, I'd say that's about it. Because there is like a miniature waterfall that flows in off the rock over there.
Man, I'll tell you, this is a gift day, Brian, for December to be down here. But I mean, you can see, folks, we are here on the water's edge. Don't want to get too close. Somebody's got a ladder tied up there.
Yeah, people call it a swing rope.
They got a swing rope tied up here. Wow.
Forrester hates that thing up in here.
Gosh, it took an idiot to get up there and climb up that tree and hang it. But I mean, you can kind of get a gist of why Uncle Jim wanted to be buried down here. Yeah. I mean, even without the lake, it would have been just it would have been pasture land, rolling hills, Whippoorwill Creek, Laurel River. Great looking place. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Is that Grove right around the corner there?
Yeah, right over there.
It's Grove Marine. You see a houseboat way off in the distance there. So when you pull back, just enjoy the beauty. God almighty. Laurel and Whitley County, very lucky.
Now, where do you think Vogel home place would be? Standing right here, you can see Grove Marina.
Back up Whippoorwill.
Because you remember, we could see Grove Marina like perfectly right there. So
no, we couldn't see it. We couldn't see it. We guesstimated it to be around the corner. I think the old Vogel home place is going to be back up Whippoorwill Creek right over through there. And the Galilean Children's Home is going to be on that next ridge over there.
About right, yeah. When you go up around the curve.
Yeah.
That's what I always figured it'd do that too. Right across from where Dark Color and all that be.
Mm-hmm.
Right down in there.
Yep. And Uncle Jim's buried right up there. Man, you just can't appreciate the beauty of this place, bro, till you're just out here trekking around in it. So the way, go ahead, I'm sorry.
The rocks is all cracked apart.
Oh yeah. So Line Creek is going to be back around that way. Whippoorwill Creek back around that way. Grove Marine off in the distance there. What a gorgeous place, man. Not a bad place to rest in peace, Brian.
No.
Let's go back up and visit Uncle Jim. I want to get a GPS of his grave. Hey, Brian, these people get on Facebook sometime, they put, my view this morning. that shit always cracks me up. Yeah. My view this morning. Hey, let me tell you something. Uncle Jim Earls got all y'all beat, because Uncle Jim could say, my view forever. Not half bad, is it?
No. It's pretty close in here, man.
And if you go back to 1942, the day they buried Jim up here, Brian, this place wouldn't have looked like this.
No, it would have all been a big grassy, like a big grassy hillside.
Big grassy hillside.
Yeah,
I mean, all you got to do is look around. There ain't no trees in here big enough to amount to anything.
Barely any of these trees over 30 years old.
If that. Fascinating, man. Fascinating. Uncle Jim. Of course, seems like an uncle to me, Brian. We've followed him and read about him so much.
He's old. He still got his original fieldstone.
I'll be darned. There it is.
It was buried about that deep.
Yeah.
And I went through with the shovel and stuff and cleaned it all
That's
out.
his old stone, original stone.
Yeah. That's why. To see his flowers was up laying up here on top of the thing.
Wonder who purchased the modern stone for him. They added it later, didn't they?
I think forestry. I think forestry government might have.
They may have. They may have.
And put them down here.
Of course, Jim had some kin folks living. Still does.
Yeah.
But
I know a lot of them Earls and stuff. They're pretty good people.
What a beautiful place, man.
Old man Otis, I think about him all the time.
Well, when Jim picked his spot, he may be the smartest cat that I've known. He picked a spot not knowing there'd ever be a Laurel Lake, but he picked a high spot where the construction of Laurel Lake did not affect him at all. In fact, when you start looking around here, this ground is untouched. Even though they built a big multi-billion-dollar project and a lake project, this ground was untouched. They didn't have no reason to come in here and put bulldoze around up here, Brian.
No, there wasn't ever no home places up here, nothing that I know of.
Well, probably no, not where we were, till you get back on up.
There was like an old Meade family about this later on that I was heard about one time, but I never could find no history on nothing like that.
But during this lake construction, there was no need in shaping any of this. It did not affect the water levels. It did not affect the shorelines. So old Jim was laying up here in 42, and they come up here and started building the lake in 64, which was, what, 23 years later.
Yeah. I wonder where the old poplar tree at was that.
There was an old poplar tree that it said in the Vogel book. He was buried next to a poplar tree. Now, is that a poplar sprout coming out of that one there?
Yeah.
That could have been the stump to the old poplar tree right there, Brian.
See, right here's a poplar sprout that I cut off going out of the grave.
Yeah.
You know, I cut this off back in the spring.
Yeah. Get that liquor bottle out of the way. That's not doing Jim any justice, sir. I don't know. Old Jim probably did his part of shining back in these parts.
You know, the funny thing about that bottle is right there where I collect bottles and stuff like that at the house. There's no dude that found that bottle right there and said he placed it there in that stump for me. Told me to grab it when I come back to the grave.
There you go. Is it worth anything?
No, not really.
I'd say that's the poplar tree that Vogel mentioned in his book when they buried Jim next to an old poplar tree. Or there's the remnants of that old poplar tree laying there.
That's a pine.
Is that a pine?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's all kinds of deadfall around here.
I
So.
said, man, like this probably is the stump right here, way
Yeah.
up and stuff.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Here's a sprout come out of it, but like I said, I cut this off back in the spring. There was another one right down there cut off.
Mm-hmm.
It was about this big.
Well, we've been piddling around here on Find a Grave, got enough signal out here, and we found out that, what year was it? 1907?
1903.
1903. Jim married a Parky.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned Parky a while ago, dog. Tell them about Parky.
Parky Ridge ran off where Grove Marina sits now. Parky Ridge was the ridge that ran out that way, all the way up to where the water. It's all underwater now. About every bed, though, place underwater. Parky Ridge and everything.
So when we were pulling up graves there, and we did a search for Martha, we found a Parky. It jumped off the page at us, and that your knowledge of this area served us well, bro. So they were up in years when they got married, I guess.
Yeah, she was married to a Hamlin, to Joe Hamlin right there, and
he died young, about 47-year-old.
yeah, in 1925 is what it said
I think she divorced him.
Yeah,
because she married Jim before he died.
Yeah, they was only married for just a few years, like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. Wow. So we found Marthy. So Jim's wife lived to be 81 years old, and she ended up dying and was buried in Lincoln County.
Yeah, probably in a nursing home, like you said. Probably had a kid living.
Probably had a kid living over there, and they took her in as she got up in her years, and she's buried in the Friendship Cemetery in Lincoln County.
81, it's a long life.
Well, that's going to do it right here from the grave of Uncle Jim Earls. Brian, thanks, man.
Hey, ain't no problem. Anytime, brother.
From down on Whippoorwill, God's country, folks.